Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with Savage Unfiltered Podcast, TheLibertyBeacon.com, and I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show! Who all still being censored on Twitter after Elon takeover? Well, we're going to talk about social media in general, but mainly Twitter. Twitter is still an issue, still a problem. But first, I thought I'd start with YouTube. I have issues with YouTube, but not as much as I do Twitter. I'm outright still banned on Twitter, as well as my original fascist book account. I have aliases on both now, but my original YouTube account is still there, still active, and the original channel that I set up, most of my social media is under @JLenardDetroit, and as we've discussed, no O in Leonard, JLenardDetroit. That's my channel. I'm also on Brighteon and Rumble, BitChute. I did run into trouble with censorship on Vimeo, though, interestingly enough, so I don't use that much, even though I do have an account there under a different title. It's kind of like my last resort emergency reserve video site. YouTube has indeed censored me. I have indeed been threatened with having my channel completely shut down. And it's not like I'm some big thing on YouTube. I'm not. I have just a channel that has not that many followers, subscribers, not followers, correct, wrong word for that site. Means the same thing. They all like to have their own phrase, their own word, their own term to basically be the same thing. YouTube had indeed threatened me a few times that if I hadn't taken down a few things, they would terminate my channel. So those things that are censored on YouTube are up on my Rumble channel, and Rumble has not given me any hard time whatsoever, regardless of whatever content I've wanted to put up there. They've not been a censorship site, have not had an issue with them, and I am thankful for that. So I have mainly stuck with Rumble as my alternative, even though I said, again, I'll repeat, yes, BitChute and Vimeo, and what are the other ones? I'm on several of them. Most people still use YouTube, correct? So really, you want to still maintain a YouTube channel. Sadly, yes, I knuckled under. I deleted those items. Elsewhere, I could still put them and share them. So it's only a minor inconvenience dealing with the YouTube censors. In general, it's not a problem. Most of my content is there, so most of the content can be seen. And on those rare occasions where I put something on Rumble that YouTube would be a little too touchy to want to handle, I just share the Rumble. Fascist book is the next one I prefer to discuss. We'll wait on Twitter. Save the best for last or worst for last, however you wish to look at it. The best story, the worst situation currently, because again, I am still on YouTube. I am still on Fascist Book, although under an alias. My original account on Facebook that had been there for ages, decades. I can't even remember exactly when I created a Facebook account. It was fairly early on. And I had around the 5K friends limit level. So I also created a page. Well, you can find my JLenardDetroit page still up on Fascist Book. They suspended permanently my Joseph M. Leonard account, so I can't do anything with my JLenardDetroit page on Facebook, but it's still there for kind of historical archive referencing, I guess, which is not entirely bad. But my JLenardDetroit page on Facebook, I kept lighthearted. I mainly shared funny kind of memes, jokes. My main Facebook account, my primary account, was where I put my politics. And of course, that's where they had a problem with me, right? My humor wasn't a problem. My desire to spread facts over feelings were, of course, the problem. That indeed is permanently banned. Again, yes, I'm there under an alias, got nowhere near back up to the 5K friends, followers, followings that I previously had. I mainly keep my circle tighter now. It's not my primary source of putting information out. We have so many alternatives now. So I don't care so much about Fascist Book or even Twitter and even YouTube, because we have those alternatives. I'll mention Parler first, right? Because I liked Parler. Parler was doing good till, of course, Amazon allowed cancel culture to pull them from the AWS system, the servers that Parler was using. They came back, they rebooted. We had to all start again from scratch. I did that. I was willing to do that. And then Kanye took it over, and Kanye decided, well, he'd rather be an AWS than a social media platform. So their entire server farm became cloud services. Parler's now gone, but I'm on Gab, MeWe, Freely, Truth Social, Locals. I mean, I can't even think of them all. I'm on 15 different platforms. Virtually look for me anywhere under @JLenardDetroit or Joseph M. Leonard. Too many of them even to remember them all. I keep them all open under one browser. Let me give you some hints, tips, and techniques on social media use. And I often say to people who say, oh, well, I'm only on Truth, or I'm only on Twitter, or I'm only on MeWe, or Freely, or Gab, or Retalk. Out of the UK is another one, the most recent I joined, Retalk. I love that site. It operates a little differently. But I say to people, why would you want to limit yourself? Why would you want to limit your reach? So I have a piece. You can go to tinyurl.com/social media never surrender. Of course, all together as one word. tinyurl.com. I like using the tinyurl.com service to shorten links because the article links are way too long to deal with. I give the hints, tips, techniques there about, I use Firefox as basically my sole social media browser. So I have all these social media sites that I'm on open in separate tabs on a Firefox browser. I use Chrome for other things. I use Opera for other things. I use Brave for other things. I'm a former IT guy, so I'm multitasking a bazillion things at one time all the time on my computer. And yeah, sometimes it causes it to crash because I indeed have too much going on at times. But having all your social media platform sites open on one browser should not be an issue for most people. I suggest you put those in order, not alphabetical or anything like that, but as in content size. Like Twitter is still generally the smallest amount of content you can put in, whatever the character count is up to. Then you can cut and paste before you hit post there to the next size. All right, let's just say Parler again for whatever the limit there was. Before you post that, you elaborate a little if you needed to say more, because not everything can be said in a tweet. That is always the problem with Twitter. It's great for sound bites and brief talking points, but detailed discussion just not to be had on Twitter, unless if you're going to spend all day going back and forth with comments and replies to expound upon what you said, and misunderstandings can be had because you have to put your thoughts into such a small space, small sentences, and it's led to, of course, the Twitter attention span, as I call it. Everybody's short attention span. And this abbreviation nonsense has gotten out of control. I do too now. UR for your, LLL, of course, everybody does that. I don't think that's a big deal. But when we're shortening real words like ARE, R or OUR, either occurrence, you just put the letter R and expect people to understand based on the context of the sentence which real word you're actually using in that state. So cut and paste to Parler, add some additional context on that space, then cut and paste to Gab, add more if need be there, add a picture, add a meme. Memes are great. I mean, we've all come to love memes because, as the old saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Put a picture and a dozen words, it can say indeed as much as 5 paragraphs can say at times very succinctly, and that's great. We should be succinct when and where we can, unlike the rambling I'm currently doing, right? Hey, got to keep a sense of humor, got to be able to poke fun at ourselves, or we do not dare laugh at others. If you can't laugh at yourself, you've got no right to be laughing at anybody else. Those are my tips and tricks for that. We've talked about YouTube, we've talked about fascist book, but yes, Twitter, of course, is the elephant in the room, so to speak. Most of us on the right, conservatives, or as I call myself, a ChristiTutionalist, had run into the censorship issues on Twitter. And I'm not immune to that. I have been shadow banned forever over there. In fact, here's where the better story comes in. I am one of 200 people that became known as the Mighty 200. Musician Toots even wrote a song, a anti-censorship anthem about us. Me and 199 other Americans out of the, 350 million plus, of course, not all 350 million Americans are on Twitter. But out of all those people indeed on Twitter, 200 of us were targeted by Politico and Hillary Clinton in 2016. That's right. The beginning of the Russian collusion delusion didn't start with President Trump or then candidate Trump. They floated that attacking us 200. Politico's article, and in thelibertybeacon.com piece that's associated with this episode, you can find the links to the Politico pieces and see them. And indeed, you'll see my face. So you will see that I was directly targeted by Politico and Hillary Clinton in 2016. How I didn't get permabanded back then is still a shock to this day, but of course they kept attacking us. They got us shadow banned, and that's probably why we weren't, most of us, outright permabanned at Twitter at that time, because they were shadow banning us. Not a whole lot of people were seeing us, but before that happened, I was targeted because a lot of my posts, I did the statistics, I did the analysis, I used the tools. A lot of my posts weren't getting immediate direct reach in response from my 250,000 followers on Twitter, but those they shared it with, those that it went out with from there, the retweets, and even those seeing it without retweeting it, because someone else had retweeted it. A lot of my posts were getting 8 million pairs of eyeballs, supposedly, on a lot of my tweets. So obviously, while numbers-wise of followers, 250,000 certainly isn't a million, I was still a pretty big player. And so were a few of the others in the mighty 200. And why they went at us was the start of the Russian collusion. They, of course, attacked us as mostly Russian bots. So we, of course, always joked about that. I mean, if you were making a bot, would you make it as ugly as I am? Right? Again, that you've got to have self-deprecating humor and a willingness to laugh and poke fun at yourself. I'm no bot. People knew that. And that was our response. Clearly, look at us. Do research. You could DuckDuckGo me even way back then and see, because I wrote online articles way back since the internet was first born, because I'm a former IT guy. I go back to the days of 300 baud modems from personal computer dialing personal computer to communicate via bulletin board services long before the internet was even created. So I had a long history of reaching people with conservative type articles. I was too affected. So they tried to get me, dismiss me, as well as the other 199, right? If they can't defeat you, if they can't refute your points, they have to try to dismiss you and discredit you. Part of the left-wing dodge, deflect, distract, distort, deny.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Ed Bondarenka, and I host Your American Heritage on Saturdays at 2 in the afternoon on this station. Your American Heritage is a show about the struggle we find ourselves in and how to react to it in the light of our biblical and American heritage. Listen to it while you're working around the house, the garage, cleaning the guns, walking the dog, driving, or just lazing around. Join me at 2 o'clock Saturdays here on Wham Radio, 1600 AM, 92.7 FM.
God bless America.
Repeat lie after lie, Saul Alinsky style, personal attacks, not on policy, attack personally, trying to get you canceled before the cancel culture ever really took root. It was around then. We just didn't call it that. They called us Russian bots. They said we were Russian agents. If they couldn't dismiss us as a bot, they tried to say we were involved in Russian collusion, that whole start of that process. And they saw that it was taking hold. The liberal left controlled Twitter at that time, and they were perpetuating that. Sadly, quite a few of my fellow the mighty 200 voluntarily shut down their accounts. And I was saying, hell no, I'm not leaving voluntarily. The only way I'm going is you perma-suspend me. You can suspend me over and over and over. I'm going to take the suspension and come back twice as hard, because surrender doesn't solve anything. Surrendering Twitter, the ground before Elon took over, didn't help anything. It just allowed the leftist bubble to go unchallenged in some respects, but not entirely. Obviously, it wasn't just me there. There was a lot of people there still fighting, and that is what was really needed. But I wanted to explain that the censorship and the cancel culture goes way back, but I was not perma-banned until long after Elon took over. As a former IT guy, I knew what he was up against. There was a lot of employees that he fired. There were still a bunch more employees that were against him, hiding in the shadows so they wouldn't get fired, but still doing the same things, censoring conservatives that they had been doing forever. Up to that point, we've seen it again. He had to fire another batch of employees yet again, fairly recently. It's going to probably take several years for them to root out all the embedded bombs, so to speak, in the code, things they hid in the code. They can't just pull out one thing because that nastiness, that self-replicating AI, basically, is embedded in several different locations throughout the code. So you take out one piece of code that is there to hunt down and suspend or permaban conservatives, you take that out, there's still 10 other copies of that same code almost throughout the rest of the code that has to be rooted out. So Elon took over. I was certainly hoping I would be fine, but no. About 8-9 months after Elon took over, I was permabanned. And of course, I've been attempting to appeal that ever since. But of course, Elon has cut the staff so much, there's still no real customer service staff. There's no phone number. You can't email them. There's no way to get a hold of a human. The only way to do that, and if you will, if you're still on Twitter, please ask Elon, at Elon for me, please unban at JLenardDetroit. Suspended without cause in my mind. They didn't give me a chance, as in the past. Sometimes they give you a warning. We will suspend the account if you don't delete that tweet, and then you delete the tweet, and a week or two later, you'd be able to come back. But no, out of the blue, no warning, all of a sudden, bam, account locked out. No way to get back in, nothing I could do. I even tried paying for the Twitter Blue thing, thinking that, well, if I'm willing to pay, somebody somewhere should actually look at the account then and say, okay, let's unsuspend him and take his money. No, they wouldn't even do that because there's probably not even enough staff to do that at Twitter at this time until he's able to get things under control, monetize it in a degree that he's looking to make it profitable to then hire in customer service and get a handle on those other things. Because while Elon clearly states he's a free speech guy, and that was one of the major motivations to buy Twitter, he's still a market capitalist and wants Twitter to return on his investment. He wants Twitter to turn a profit. So he's attempting to balance all that. The desire to make sure it's a free speech platform while still maintaining a reasonable set of terms of service versus what do we got to do with us in order to make it profitable. So I just wanted to talk about censorship in this episode and in this The Liberty Beacon article, even though a lot of this information is older now. I felt it important to make you aware of it and indeed ask that question. Who all still being censored on Twitter after Elon took over? Or YouTube? Or Fascist Book? Or wherever. Please definitely leave information in the comments about your story. What's your censorship story, your suspension story, your shadow ban story? I do have an alias, as I said, on Twitter, but that's my J. Leonard author account that is there to promote my book. I don't really delve into politics too much, except for those that tie into the politics that are in the book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, which is, of course, indeed a ChristiTutionalist book, a MAGA book, a Make America Great Again book. I believe in America first, not America alone, and neither does Trump. Trump is not an America alone guy. They try to peg him as that, of course. At the end of the day, we have to look at America and American citizens' best interest first and foremost, while recognizing the world is far different than what it was during World War II. Things have changed. There's these things called ICBMs, Have you heard of those? Right? Yes, I'm sure you have. These oceans don't protect us anymore. In 20 minutes' time, from anywhere else on the planet, our nation can be assaulted with nuclear warheads or EMP devices to wipe out our electrical grids and put us back centuries. We can no longer be that Fortress America concept that we could up until World War II. And many tried to keep us out of World War II, saying, there was no such thing as intercontinental bombers yet. Germany was developing them with the intent of bombing us eventually, but it didn't exist. Japan did indeed attack the U.S. mainland. I'm not talking about Pearl Harbor. I'm talking about the actual continental U.S. with balloon bombs. I know a lot of you have not ever heard about or learned that history, which is why Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You is historical fiction, or as I call it, faction. I go into that. That's why the CCP balloon incidents are a big deal. Now, China has those ICBMs. They don't need to make crude balloon bombs, but North Korea could use a balloon bomb with a nuclear or EMP device, or Iran, who don't really have adequately tested and reliable intercontinental ballistic missiles as of yet. So all these things matter. And it goes back to, are we willing to discuss these as facts or not, or just live a delusional bubble? And why I wanted to talk about censorship in this episode. The Mighty 200, we were the proving ground, if you will, for the whole Russian bot, Russian agent, Russian collusion, delusion garbage that was created, that some on the left still try to cling to today as reality, even though the Steele dossier, we know, was bought and paid for by Hillary. All these facts are out there. The evidence is out there. Her hacked emails are out there. We know all these things to be true, but the left doesn't care about reality. All they care about is their feelings. Oh, facts hurt their feelings, right? We don't want to upset their delicate, sensitive feelings. And that goes to our schools, which been discussed over and over, the indoctrination, the dumbing down of our American children. They don't want to fix the schools. They want our kids young, dumb, pliable, easily to manipulate, useful idiots. But the Mighty 200, again, we were that proving ground. You can go to tinyurl.com/themighty200 targeted. That will be included in the show notes, of course, as well as my social media Never Surrender piece. So please look for those. Please check them out. Please comment on those pieces. Those are in BeforeItsNews.com. Those aren't at the Liberty Beacon. That's in part also why I am addressing this again now, so that I can bring this all to the LibertyBeacon.com audience and to you, my ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast audience as well. A lot of things they still hide from you, a lot of things you've never heard of. You are not alone in this. There are so many people, and we cannot retreat and surrender. We must stay there online fighting, continuing to fight, continuing to go at them no matter how much they Saul Alinsky us. And the other issue is I've discussed Cloward and Piven in articles. If you don't know who Cloward and Piven are, or Saul Alinsky, you need to look them up and study. Again, don't use Google. You need to go to DuckDuckGo, Jibberoo, or FreeSpoke to get your hard facts and evidence-based items. Google suppresses results. To this day, Google still suppresses my articles online. That, again, I've been writing for many, many, many decades now. But you see next to none of them If you look on Google to find them, you can find them on DuckDuckGo, Jibberoo, or FreeSpoke because they are more conservative, or at least not hostile to conservatives. They are neutral. They are true result aggregators, and they aren't blocking and suppressing and censoring conservative results like my articles. I'm on Amazon for my book, obviously. Google don't dare suppress the results for my book, not because they don't want to upset me. They would in a heartbeat if they could. They just don't want to upset Amazon. Amazon gives them lots of ad revenue. That sneaks through their censorship, but you won't find 99% of my articles. You might accidentally, occasionally find one they didn't catch that got through the cracks of the censorship via Google. So avoid Google unless if you're shopping. Google's great for shopping results. If I'm looking for a widget, I use Google to find the best widget at the best price. But serious topics, serious issues, things I need facts and evidenced items returned to me, I use DuckDuckGo, Jibberoo, and FreeSpoke. With that, we'll call it a day. I could probably ramble on more, but I promised I was going to keep these episodes 20, 35 minutes because I know, again, sadly, today's Twitter attention span, many people will tune out if it goes very long, or won't even tune in to begin with if this were to be a 60-minute podcast or a 5,000-word article. So thank you all. Take care. God bless. Thank you for having tuned into ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. In addition to seeing the corresponding thelibertybeacon.com piece referenced in any episode of ChristiTutionalist Podcast, see to the show transcript on podcast platforms that provide access to it, like Buzzsprout at tinyurl.com/ChristiTutionalist for additional bonus material there in the transcript. Thank you. Take care. God bless.
It is a myth that terrorism stopped during COVID. Unfortunately, mainstream media opted to prioritize pandemic hysteria over promoting all news. Terrorism continues. Simply hoping that it doesn't affect you is not a strategy. The new book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, featured on The Author Show, is now available in paperback from bookstores, online, or as an ebook exclusively through Amazon Kindle. Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you by Joseph M. Leonard. Order today.